It's coming in 3, 2, 1. On the air with FDT-TV, the premier West Ham and Arsenal football podcast, brought to you every Monday by Michael Hawes and Ian Varker. Hello and welcome to week number 9 of season number 2 of the FDT-TV podcast, which is on the air. This week we have some interesting stuff, some really interesting stuff, some football conspiracy theories, if I can get my teeth in, some absolutely obliterations of Spurs, and a lucky last minute winner. All of that to come. But if you haven't already, make sure you go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. We are aiming to get 100 subscribers before the end of the January transfer window. We're getting closer, but we do need your help to get there. So if you don't mind, go over and subscribe. Show us your support. It is much appreciated. How are you doing this week, Mike?
Yeah, I'm buzzing, mate. I'm buzzing. I am on cloud 9. It seems to be that our season has finally kicked off. And do you know what? Actually, just on the topic of that, there was the Sky Sports advert really annoyed me for that game.
Go on.
And it said, "Can Arsenal kickstart their season against Spurs?" I'm not being funny, mate. We've gone 2 games already. Before that, we've won 2 games. So are they saying that just on the basis that they're calling Norwich and Brentford like minnows and we should be winning those games? Or like Spurs are amazing? Surely they need to kickstart their season again, because that's now 3 games in a row that they conceded 3 goals.
Yep. In fairness, I think part of it is just a selling point. I don't think they're anything against Arsenal, but from your first 3 games, it was a little bit of a selling point of you having no points. So
yeah, true.
Obviously you have won since then, but have they been as convincing as they were this weekend? Probably not. But
okay, I'll let you off.
I think we get straight. What do we want to start with? A quick recap of the games, or do you want to jump straight into a conspiracy?
I love it. I do love a conspiracy. Well, let's start with a conspiracy.
So the conspiracy theory is one certain Bruno Fernandes, right? With 94.3% penalty accuracy, absolutely obliterated the penalties last year. 23 out of his last 24 scored. Absolutely blazed it over the crossbar, right? Now, there is obviously Emilio Martinez was telling Ronaldo to take it, and they think that's that. But the conspiracy goes of very similar to that of when Roy Hodgson was at Liverpool, and the dressing room and the senior players wanted him out, and I think it was against Crystal Palace. Steven Gerrard steps up for a penalty, blazes it over the crossbar. No one's really too fussed about it, and next couple of weeks, Roy Hodgson's gone. So the conspiracy theory goes that the senior people at United don't want, in terms of playing staff, don't want Solskjaer as manager. And by senior people, we're talking your Ronaldos, your Bruno Fernandes, your Harry Maguires and your Paul Pogbas, sort of all working together to change the manager. Now, let's be honest, they nicked a result against us in the league. They were lucky.
Mm-hmm.
They've been abysmal since. And they've been beaten by us straight after. They were then beaten by Aston Villa. I think they have PSG coming up next week.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they lose the next Premier League game and then they lose against PSG in the season where they're meant to be challenging for things, that would leave them with 0 points in the Champions League. So the theory goes, obviously, if that happens, they will get rid of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Who will step in? I don't know. There's some things being bandied around that Ronaldo will take the reins as a player manager. Personally, I can't see that. He's stated numerous times throughout his career he doesn't want to be a manager. Once he's finished with football, he's finished with football. He might coach the youth teams and help like with his son and stuff, but he doesn't want to be a manager. Antonio Conte is out of a job, I believe, at the moment, and I believe so is Sarri.
Yes,
Used to be at Chelsea as well. Two big managers who have both won the Premier League. Out of a job, with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer being a tactically inept. Let's be honest. If he weren't managing the talent pool that he had at United, they wouldn't be where they are. Case in point, Cardiff City. But what's your take on that conspiracy theory? Because I've heard a number of things about it murmuring on, and when Bruno Fernandes missed it by so much, if he just hit the post, I can go with it was a mistake. That looked, when you look at his run up and how he did it, that looked like it was blazed over the bar, and no one was fussed about it. And you can hear, if you lip read Ronaldo, it looks like he is saying to him, "Well done."
Oh, okay, I must have missed that. So that's something to check out then. It's a good conspiracy, especially if there's previous evidence of it. I mean, it could just be one of those things. It was kind of pretty much the last kick of the game for United and Villa, wasn't it? So you could say, did the pressure get too much of it, and he's basically tried to absolutely larrup it? Because I think there was a bit of jest between, you did mention it, between Martinez and Ronaldo, and I think there's a couple of things on that where he wants to get the kind of best of the best. Do you know what I mean? Like, be able to say I saved one of Ronaldo's penalties and stuff like that. But I don't know. It is an interesting thought, and I mean, you've been saying it for weeks that Ollie needs to go. But is then again, who do you get in? I know we were linked when obviously we were going down the pan a bit for Antonio Conte coming into us, and I mean he come out and said straight away, no, not interested. So yeah, it's potentially one to watch. But sorry, I was just going to say it does make you kind of think about for Ronaldo obviously coming back to the Premier League. I know he's got this season, and I believe he's got next year as well, with an option to extend shortly after that, I believe.
Right, okay.
But it does make you wonder that if you're spending all that money, surely you would want to kind of win something on your season back. So if you're then throwing games or whatever, you could be out of the title race before you know it. Yep. I know obviously it's still fairly early on in the days anyway, and obviously we've seen us jump from 20th to 10th now, obviously leapfrogging Spurs over the weekend. So there's still a long way to go, but it would just seem a little bit ludicrous for them to kind of throw in the proverbial towel just because they want to change a manager.
Yeah.
Because there's no guarantees. Obviously, the teams around them could strengthen next year and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, 100%. It's just, I thought it was interesting, and I've seen it more and more and more coming up as this is what's happening. And some people claiming they've spoken to people at the club, and you think, I don't quite believe that. Because if that's the case, then that is sort of match fixing. And if that was going on, it wouldn't be out it would be sort of cards close to the chest. I think the next few weeks will make interesting watching at Manchester United. But that being said, we did see West Ham take on Leeds at Elland Road. I think I went for a 2-2 in that game, and when it was 1-1, I was like, especially Binez, we did score. It was ruled off. We did force a great save from Melier. And then we went 1-0 down, and I was like, this is not good. This is not good. Well, we did battle back. Jared Bowen with a ricochet off of 2 players to put it in the net, and then a last minute Antonio goal. Nice and clinical from him, which is nice to see, and Declan Rice with a got to say, pinpoint assist for it. There's 2 points from this game I want to bring up, if I'm honest. Number one was our poor defending. I think we could have done better. We were saved by the post at one point. But so the poor defending, it's not. There was momentary lapses, I want to say. But it seems to be every time there's a momentary lapse with Fabianski in goal, who's not looking with it. And I've said it week after week. He's not looking as good as he did last year. He looks flat-footed. He's not anticipating. He saved one that was straight at him, which is fine. So the other one, he sort of fell down, got saved by the post. But the Leeds goal, I personally think last year he would have saved that. He would have anticipated the shot and saved it. This year he just sort of watched it go in. And much like you did with Leno, you've taken out Leno, brought in Ramsdale. Bit of a risk. You don't know what's going to happen with it. I think at some point Moyes needs to bite the bullet, put in Areola, who actually was phenomenal in the cup against Manchester United, and just see how it goes. But 5 goals in 4 games for Antonio. That's a positive. His best season, I think, is 10 goals, so he's going to smash that quite easily, I think. And another 3 points for us. So at the first 6 games, we've only lost once, which is really, really good. That's all I have to say about that.
No, I've got to be honest, mate. When I saw Antonio's goal, I actually went, "Oh, what a banger that was!" Yeah, to be honest, I think overall, I think a draw would have been a fair result for that particular game.
Yep.
Just seeing the chances that both teams had created. But at the same time, when you've got chances like that, you do expect. Well, in fact, do you expect? I expected possibly a bit too strong. Basically, Antonio still had a lot to do. Obviously, he had to control the ball and then obviously make the run through on goal. And yeah, fair play to it. I thought it was an absolute blinder. And again, I don't feel like against the balance of play for both teams that I think a draw would have been a fair result. But at the same time, I do think that West Ham deservedly got the goal because obviously they were more clinical with their chances and stuff. So
in fairness, I mean, with the way that he was playing, when it fell to him, you're like, oh no, he's saying it's not going to happen here. It wasn't his day, but he did manage to nick one right at the end. So you can't deny he's doing well, being given the number 9 shirt as well. I think he's got number 9. I hope I haven't got that wrong. I'm sure we'll find out in the comments. But yeah, positive again from us. So that's good.
Cool. So if we then march on to Arsenal versus Tottenham.
Yes.
It's a game, I've got to be honest, I was kind of fearing before the start of the game anyway. It's obviously 2 wins for us. Spurs off the back of 2 losses, just about scraped through in the Carabao Cup. Obviously, if you include a Carabao Cup game, that's 3 wins on the bounce for us. But obviously, we know in a derby, form goes out the window.
Yep.
And I was sitting on the sofa, a little bit apprehensive about going into this game. However, after about 6 minutes, I felt a lot more reassured, if I'm being completely honest.
Yep.
Speaking to a Spurs fan at work earlier today, and I said I was a little bit anxious going into this game. I would have taken a draw quite happily. But after 6 minutes, Spurs didn't turn up. Harry Kane looked completely off the mark. And off we went. I think the damage was done certainly in the first half with goals from Emile Smith-Rowe, then Aubameyang, and then Bukayo Saka.
Yep.
Good to see Aubameyang on the score sheet again. He did create a couple of did have a couple of chances. Obviously buried that one. Emile Smith-Rowe scored one and set up Aubameyang, which I thought was fantastic. Ødegaard was brilliant. Tommy Asu, mate, what a signing he's been. Aaron Ramsdale, what a signing he's been. And it's good. It's good to see that there is competition for places. And I think at the moment we are seeing potentially our strongest team. I think one of the big surprises for me was Granit Xhaka coming back into the team. I know he's obviously served his suspension, so if the boss thinks that he's the number one, then obviously he deserves his place back into the team. However, from what I've seen of him so far this season, he's been a little bit slow in his build-up play. Whereas Sambi Lokonga, who come in for him in his absence, kind of gets involved in the game a little bit more. Does like a forward pass, likes to run the ball as well. But I've got to say, Granit Xhaka, I don't think he really put a foot wrong. Silly couple of challenges, as you would expect. And I think when the team sheet was announced, he was the only one I was a bit unsure about, just because obviously the referee that was doing that game was the guy that sent off David Luiz against Wolves last year.
Right.
So I thought, oh crap, there's going to be a similar sort of thing, and Granit Xhaka is going to get sent off again. But luckily, we had 11 players on the pitch, and Spurs never really got going. North London is red sunshine. North London is red.
What you said about Granit Xhaka there, I think sums him up perfectly. He is a coin toss, isn't it? On his day, he is phenomenal. But then again, on the other 6 days of the week, he will put in a silly 2-footed challenge and get sent off. So Sunday was his day of the week. Spurs did score.
Yes.
They put the ball in the net twice, from what I see. They seem to come alive for the last bit of the game. I think Aaron Ramsdale made a few good saves, which kept you in it. There was one which is controversial, slightly, I should say. I think it was a correct decision, and I'll explain why, and I'll get the thoughts of an Arsenal fan on it. Harry Kane called for a penalty. He was caught by Ben White. There was no contact with the ball, and he was caught. So that is a foul. It wasn't given because VAR felt that he was already on the way down before any contact was made, which I think is correct, and he seemed to do it a number of times throughout the game. I have said it a number of times, he's a dirty player. And if I'm honest, I think he's made Daniel Levy look a complete clown.
Yep.
Because he had a rubbish Euros. He was still, Man City still come in with 150 million quid. And no, we're not having that. He's not scored a goal. He's been useless, if I'm honest. And he's part of a team that have had the least shots on goal, least chances created. But what was your opinion on the penalty call?
Dive.
Go ahead.
No, I've got to be honest. That was one of those moments where my heart did go into my mouth a little bit, because again we have seen him given, and there seems to be. I've said it a couple of times without trying to sound like a bit of a diva with there appearing to be some sort of agenda against Arsenal, and I thought that was going to be another one of those decisions that kind of go against us, which I'm glad it didn't, because I think that could have been the stepping stone for Harry Kane to get on the score sheet in the Premier League, find his confidence. Because I've got to be honest, mate, and I've been listening to TalkSport, and I was listening to TalkSport yesterday, shortly after the game, listening to some of the Spurs fans come on, and one of the things that was brought up was Harry Kane. Should he be on the pitch, or not? Sorry. When I say on the pitch, should he be in the match day squad? You've obviously got a disgruntled player. He didn't get here, or he come out quite openly at the end of last season and says that he wants to move on, and wants to challenge for titles, and he feels that being at Spurs, he's not going to be able to do that, which I think is a fair point. Now, so you've got a player that's disgruntled that they didn't get the move.
Yep.
As you mentioned, he had a very shocking Euros and only got back into it from a 2-foot tap in and didn't show up for the final. I think that I personally think he should be dropped.
Yep.
We have he doesn't get substituted, which we have seen the likes of Aubameyang. Obviously, he went through a bit of a torrid spell last season, kind of drifted into the start of this season as well. And we showed, or the boss showed him, that you're not guaranteed a starting place, or you're not guaranteed to stay on the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not performing, you will get substituted. Whereas at Spurs, they haven't really got that option. They're paying him a ludicrous amount of money to try and obviously, or to kind of keep him at the club.
Yep.
But it's blatantly obvious that he does not want to be there, and I think that's summed up completely with his shot. So he managed to outmuscle Tomiyasu with a chip through ball, and he got on the end of it. And I would say last season Harry Kane would bury that all day long.
Yeah.
Go to chip Ramsdale and nestle it into the net, but it went wide, over and wide. And I think that's going to sum up Harry Kane. So the point I'm trying to make is that, hey, I think drop him.
Yeah.
He's not providing anything, and obviously he was at fault for the third goal as well. I know he obviously tried to make amends from that by running through, and I would say had he missed the ball, he could have caused some serious damage to Bukayo Saka. So it would have either been a penalty or I think a potential nasty injury.
Yeah.
Because he did come through like a bit of a nutty boy, but at the end of the day, he missed the challenge, and Bukayo Saka managed to get onto the end of it and score. So it's. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Harry Kane, Spurs fall further down the table until they take Harry Kane out of the team.
Yeah, and the trouble is now his valuation will be plummeting, because he's not in form, he's not playing well, he's not scored a goal. But there is something else I have to say about Spurs.
Good shit.
Well, apart from that, towards the end of the Pochettino reign, there was no fight, there was no desire, the wanting to play football left. He lost his job and was replaced by Jose Mourinho, who played a very defensive game, but towards the beginning of his reign, there was a lot of fight. There was a little bit of a tenacity. There was some class, and then it got more and more defensive. And people were moaning at Jose, he shouldn't be playing like that, and it's so negative. He got them to a cup final and then was sacked before. But I think personally was just a carry on from Pochettino. You've had one manager who can't get it right, who was the Messiah for time. You've then had one of the world's best who can't get it right. They brought in I want to say Harry Winks. It wasn't Harry Winks, he's a player.
Ryan Mason.
Ryan Mason, that's it. And again, the first game, tenacity, fire, fight, everything, then it dropped off again. They brought in Nuno, the first game. Fire, fight, tenacity, wanting to get in on the ball, and it just dropped off. I don't think it's a problem with the management. I think there's a deeper rooted problem in some of those players. And with the likes of, as you said, Harry Kane wanting out quite clearly. I know his media statement said different. He wants out. So your main man wants out. Dele Alli is known to be lazy. He's a very gifted footballer, but he is lazy. You've got Hugo Lloris, who's, let's be honest, on the wane, has been for the last year or so, and he's coming towards the end of his career. Once a really solid keeper, but coming towards the end of his career. Serge Aurier, probably the only person who had the most fight in that team, I would say, can be a bit of a liability. Let go on a free. He was just released from his contract. Eric Dyer on his day can be phenomenal, but that comes once a season. Do you know what I mean? They've lost the the drive in them to be able to do it. And I think that's because they're on a lot lower wages than everyone else. So why am I fighting as hard as that guy? Because he's not good at football as me, but he's on twice what I'm on.
Yep.
So I think they've started to realise that. But also, I think there's a lot of players there, a bit like Arsenal had, where you've you've terminated a lot of contracts of players who are either not good enough, their heart's not in it, or it's just not working at the club. And they've now owned up to those mistakes. I don't think Tottenham will do that. Not many clubs will do that. But there's a number of players there who need to be got rid of.
Yep.
It's an ageing squad as well. And you've brought in Nuno, who is known to be defensive, which is what the fans were moaning about with Mourinho there, and known to only sort of explode in the second half, which they did to a certain extent. They turned up a bit more in the second half, but it was already too late. It was already too late. So this is a hangover from all this rest of it, and there needs to be some big change. And as I said a few minutes ago, Daniel Levy looks a complete clown. I've said for years, phenomenal businessman. There is no denying that. You think when he signed Gareth Bale to a new contract, like a week later, sold it to Real Madrid for 80 million. That's magical business. Does it work for football? Not really. Same with Harry Kane. Could have got 150 million for him. He's not really worth 50 anymore. He's 28. He's not quick, and he's having the worst seasons of his life. Yes, we know he has got quality, but who wants him? Who wants him at the minute? You got Haaland that's going on a release clause. You've got Mbappe who's on a free. Who wants Harry Kane for 100 or 200 million? Do you know what I mean? If you're a Spurs fan, I'd be interested to know what you think needs to change to make it work. So either leave a comment on the YouTube video, get at us on Twitter, because we like joining in the conversation. Let us know what you think. And our Twitter handles are below, and they're also in the comments on our links. But yeah, just let us know what you think needs to change. If you was Daniel Levy, what would you be looking at changing now? Because the manager's not worked several times. So what might be the problem if you were looking at it?
No, yeah. To be honest, mate, I think that's a fair question to put out to people, especially obviously Spurs fans, just because of the general consensus of the people I was listening to yesterday, as I mentioned, were saying drop him from the team. You had the likes of Darren Bent, and I can't remember who else was on or who was presenting the show, but obviously you had the vast majority of Spurs fans coming on there saying drop him. He's not adding any value to the team. Some were saying leave him out the squad. Some were saying just leave him on the bench until he realizes that he's not guaranteed, until he starts putting a shift in.
Yep.
He's not guaranteed a starting place, and I think that's a completely fair point.
Yep.
But when you look at the comments from the presenters, ex-professional footballers, saying no, you don't leave him out. And I suppose to some extent, if you're paying the guy that amount of wages, I can't remember, they either said 220 or 250,000 pounds a week. You kind of, even if he doesn't want to be there, you kind of want to play him because obviously you're paying that amount of wages, and there may be the off chance that he gets a scrappy tap in, or kind of like what we saw at the Euros to kind of kickstart his Euro campaign. However, for me, I think the problem does lie deeper than just having an off period. Like I said, when he come out at the end of last season, he said that he wanted his new contract or his transfer sorted out before the Euros started. Now, whether that had a knock-on effect on him at the Euros, because like we said, we didn't see the best of him, or that we have seen previously in other tournaments, etc. Whether that was kind of playing on his mind a bit, and then obviously towards the end of the transfer window, started coming into the season, still hasn't scored. The transfer window closed, and he come out and said, "No, this has always been the arrangement. I'd agreed with the club that I was on taking an extended holiday. It's not that I've not turned up for training, and then, oh no, I'm 100% committed behind Spurs. I'm sorry, he's not. He's not committed to Spurs at all.
No. No, and I think the worst thing you could do with a footballer, and it's been seen over and over and over and over again, is keep them when they don't want to be there. It's
I mean, sometimes.
Go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, sometimes you just have to cut your losses.
Yes.
He's been at the club for since an academy lad. He's given the best years, I would say, the best years of his career to Tottenham Hotspurs. Unfortunately, it's not worked out in terms of winning any silverware. And I think for a player of his age, I know he's not even 30 yet. I think you mentioned he's 28 years old. Yeah. But we've already seen him over the last 2 seasons, how he's kind of had to adapt his role slightly because he's not as quick as what he was.
Yeah, and he never.
Don't get me wrong, he's got a terrific boot on him, and he can score a bloody good header as well.
Yep.
But that's he's now playing it into kind of like, I think you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, the whole Bobby Firmino role, and in the false number 9. But if you're going to be playing the false number 9, you then have to have your wingers kind of filling those spaces as well in the box as well.
You see, I don't necessarily think he's playing that sort of Bobby Firmino role, that false number 9, because he wants to. I think it is a case of he's not quick enough to keep up with Son and Lucas Moura and Steven Bergwijn, so he's always behind play. Unless he's goal hanging, he's always behind play. And at that point, once your wingers are up and they're putting balls in the box and there's no one there, you're at a loss, aren't you? You think, look at the Wolves squad. You like pacey wingers, and Raul Jimenez, who has got a fair bit of pace about him, and a presence in the box that Harry Kane has got. I don't think Harry Kane's as good in the air as Jimenez is, but he's not as quick. And for 150 million quid, you could have bought in Laurentino Martinez, absolute speed demon at Inter Milan, plays that role phenomenally. Very young guy, probably might have cost him 80 million quid, but you've still got a load in the bank. Do you know what I mean? I can't see Harry Kane staying another season.
No.
Well, he's got 5 years left on his contract with an option of a 6th. Will Daniel Levy be stubborn? Probably. But at what point does he realise they need to get this guy off the books? Who knows? But there is one more transfer thing that I want to bring up with you. Arsenal at the beginning of the season went to Brighton, who you play in the next game, with £50 million. You come back with Ben White. Now, this is my opinion, obviously. From what I've seen of him, I think you come away from Brighton with the wrong player. I think you should have gone to Brighton with 50 million quid and come back with Yves Bissouma and £20 million in your pocket, because he was available for 30 mil. What's your stance on that?
I see there was talks about a potential double deal for that one, because I know he's a player that we've seen quite heavily discussed about on social media with us being linked to and trying to go for him. But I think in terms of we needed recruitment, obviously, into the defence to fill the void that David Luiz had left. Not Mavropanos. Socrates? Yeah, Socrates. Obviously, Saliba going out on loan again, so there was a hole to be filled. So, I think, as it stands at the moment, I think it's very hard to judge Ben White from what I have seen of him in an Arsenal shirt. Granted, it's only a few games. I think the partnership that him and Gabriel Magalhaes have formed already over the past couple of weeks, I think it's kind of reminds me of kind of like the Keown Adams,
Okay.
Nigel Winterburn, Adams kind of partnership that we saw of old. The pair of them were, I think, absolutely fantastic in terms of the challenges and stuff they were putting in. Some good old school challenges. I've got to be honest, from what I have seen of Ben White, I do quite like him. I think the only thing that would potentially let him down over the course of the season is his height.
Okay.
In terms of aerial challenges and stuff. But then I think with the other players that you've got in the team could kind of cover that particular aspect anyway.
Yep.
Basuma, I think he's a quality player, but I wouldn't write off us not going for him still. But when you look at because we've still got Mohamed El Neni on the books, we've still got Granit Xhaka, who else we got in the middle? Maitland-Niles, another one. There's a couple of players that could potentially move on, which could fund that deal at a later point, either in January or at the next transfer window.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily write it off as being dead in the water, but I think we had to make recruitments in other areas to strengthen us immediately. When you look at the likes of Thomas Partey as well, when he was like 60 odd million last year. But it's a potential partnership that we could see if we do go in for him again.
Yeah.
But we made recruitments with Sambi Lokonga as another player. I think in the short time I've seen him at Arsenal, I think he has a lot of potential. But I mean, looking further down the line with if he carries on the way he's going, because he's looking like an outstanding footballer, that's only going to drive his price tag up, I think. And there could be other potential teams to come in for him, such as your Manchester Uniteds, your Liverpools, your Chelseas.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, he's a young 18-year-old you bought from Anderlecht.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. So what you're saying then is that Yves Bissouma is not necessarily dead in the water, but it was more of a necessity to get a defender than it was to put another player in the midfield.
Yeah,
which is a fair statement on it. Fair statement. I didn't think of it in that sense, if I'm honest. There is one more transfer room which I have heard. Lacazette. Mm-hmm. He was linked with a number of exits in the summer. We've not seen him play loads this year. When you originally bought him, West Ham also threw their name in the hat, and with it matched your bid, matched your contract, he went with you because you had Champions League football, which is fair enough. Long term, I think he's made a mistake there. I think he probably could have been the main man at West Ham, but he's now being linked with an exit from Arsenal in January. And with West Ham only having one out-and-out striker, there has been links with a £10 million move to us. Would you want to see the back of him, or would you want to see him utilised slightly more within the squad?
I personally would like to see him utilised slightly more. I think he offers something very different to Aubameyang. Excuse me. There's been times that I've watched Lacazette and thought, what the hell are you doing? I don't think he's got a fair crack at the whip at Arsenal. Obviously, I think he joined around about the same time that Oli Giroud was still at the club anyway. But those two, I think, are very similar in terms of their striking abilities. They've got a wicked shot on them when he gets on target, and they can score some absolute belters. But I think Lacazette offers more than that in terms of his desire and his hold-up play, as well as his shooting ability. Personally, I would be gutted to see him go, but from what I've read from multiple sources, is that he's not going to sign a contract extension.
Yep.
And then I think the one thing that you have to worry about, I suppose, in a sense, is the relationship that he's got with Aubameyang. There's a real bromance between those two, and I think even if you remove one of the elements from that, I think you will see a little bit of a drop in form for one of those players, because I mean we do have options in terms of Arteta's youthful setup. So we've got the likes of Nketiah, we've got Balogun, we've got Martinelli, who can all play in the striker position. And from what we're seeing is that he's trying to blood such a young team, that it could be one of those players that unfortunately we do have to say goodbye to give the others an option. But at the same time, I think when he's got it right, he's got it really right.
Yeah.
And I genuinely feel that he's not had a fair crack at the whip. Sorry. that was a bit of a tongue twister, that one. Yeah, I don't think he's been given a fair crack at the whip at Arsenal. And it's a shame. Because, I mean, he was top goal scorer for us last year. And I know that's not saying much because we had a diabolical season. But those goals were valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, without him, you would have been much worse off.
Mm.
But points. You started off a little bit like Arsenal in real life, lagging behind. All of a sudden, your season had a kickstart. I think it was last week, and you caught right up. We made some obviously suggestions. We made some guesses. I sat on the fence a little bit with both results. But what are the latest points?
So, Leeds versus West Ham. You made the 2-2 prediction, as you mentioned earlier. I said 2-1 to West Ham. It was 2-1 to West Ham. Therefore, 3 points to me and 0 points to you for that particular week. Arsenal versus Tottenham. Again, I think the words were a bore draw.
Yes. How wrong could I have been?
I've got to be honest. Like, when it comes to, I think I mentioned it last week that there was a few ways this game could have gone.
Yeah.
Harry Kane hasn't scored, so he was either going to run right with us. It was going to be a scrappy 1-0 or 1 goal advantage to either team. So I put us down as a 2-1. That was a heart over the head kind of thing, because I did kind of expect either Spurs to come or walk all over us, or it'd be a draw. But I went with my heart, and luckily it come off. I went for a 2-1. You went for 0-0. It was 3-1, so a point to me and 0 points to you. So that puts the scores this week. Ian, you scored a grand total of 0 points. And I ran away with 4 points this week. So the scores, as you mentioned at the start of the season, I was doing diabolically.
Yeah.
You are currently sitting on 7, and I have stormed into the lead with 12 points.
Oh, mate, that's a lead already. That's about as many points as I got last year. As I said to Mike before we kicked off, Chelsea did muck up my accumulator this week. I put on £1. It would have returned £556. Chelsea ruined it straight away, but I did get all the other results, including Aston Villa beating Manchester United. So, sums out really. But it's a new week. It's a new week. There's still a chance to catch up. There's still a chance to catch up.
That's it, mate.
Brighton versus Arsenal on Saturday is our first fixture. So, what's your take on that?
So Brighton obviously having a relatively good start to the season. Currently, at the time we are recording this, they are currently in the 6th position. Just finished actually with Brighton 1-1, and equalised in the 95th minute apparently. So again, they are not doing too shabba-dabs. I think this is going to be another challenge for us, like Burnley. They're having a few scrappy results with us over the course of the last couple of years. But we are the informed team at the moment. I know it's another away game for us. And again, we do tend to do a bit more poorly away from home. However, I'm going to fancy our chances on this one, and I'm going to go for a 2-1 to Arsenal.
Ooh, 2-1 to Arsenal. Now, see, I have gone on the fact that Brighton are doing quite well this year, as you just said. You have a bit of a resurgence, so I think there's going to be a lot of goals in this game. I think the biggest thing for Arsenal is they know all about Ben White. So that's what I think will be your weakness. Is they know his weaknesses. They know how to get around him. I've gone 2-2. I think there's gonna be goals, but you're not gonna be able to be separated.
Okay.
And the second fixture, West Ham host the mighty Brentford, who battled courageously to get a draw. I think we're unlucky not to win against Liverpool at the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a number of factors here. I'm going to be positive with this one and go for 3-2 to West Ham. Now, let me give you the reasons why. We're fucking massive, being number one. Number two, being that we're forever blowing bubbles. And number three, I don't know.
We are fucking massive.
We are fucking massive. Yeah. See, number one. No, we've got a game against Rapid VN in the week, so that will make it a little bit more difficult. Brentford, we've seen them play well behind closed doors. They've not played so well. I can see them. I can see us conceding, but I can also see them conceding as well. And I just hope the crowd, being the 12th man, will get behind the team, and we will see a victory. And say West Ham will run out winners 3-2. I think it's going to be a goallicious game.
I have gone opposite.
Okay.
To you. From what I've seen of Brentford already this season, there's a lot to admire about that team. Yep. Obviously, they were pushing for Premiership football for a good couple of seasons whilst they're in the Championship. They've got guys that can score goals. I think one of the things that we've seen from Brentford is they're not afraid to press, and B to knock the ball around. They play some really nice football.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have said it on a number of occasions that the one way to beat West Ham would be how is it you phrase it?
Simple football.
And that's what I think from what I have seen from Brentford already is even coming to us, they played a very high press game. They just kind of choked all options as well. And I think you could say the same against Liverpool the other day. So I think obviously with your game in the Europa League, that could take a lot out of you guys. And therefore I am going to go for a 2-1 win to Brentford.
If it's my gut instinct was 3-1 Brentford, and then I thought I've been going with my gut the whole season, and it's not really done me well the last couple of weeks, so I'm going to ignore that. Okay, so we've got different results again, so potentially another big swing. Hopefully it goes my way this week. By all means, get in the YouTube comments, let us know what you think those results are going to be. There was one other big sporting event. Well, there was a number of big sporting events. The Ryder Cup, which Europe lost, but no one really cares about that. It's boring. Golf is really fun to play, right? It's boring as shit to watch on TV. It's almost as bad as watching tennis. But we saw Nick Diaz, Robbie Lawler, return of Nick Diaz from the first time in the UFC for 9 years. Got stopped. A really good fight. But the big one, AJ versus Uysk, and I won a fuckload of money. No, I won about 15 quid on it. I wish I had more spare cash to be able to put a bet on, but I didn't. I like Uysk. Followed him for a little while now, since just before he beat Tony Bellew. Anthony Joshua. He got beaten by Ruiz. We saw the same mistakes. Was too confident, was too cocky, didn't want to impose himself, and was beaten by a man who was winning Olympic medals when Anthony Joshua first picked up the boxing gloves in 2007. So, what do you take on that? Anthony Joshua wasn't just beaten; he was well beaten, and he should have been knocked out. Uysk has said, my coach said not to knock him out, and they rang the bell 6 seconds early when he was out on his feet. Do you think his head is out of the game?
Do you know what? It's really strange because obviously at one point in time, a few years ago, all it was on the TV was AJ, AJ, AJ.
Yep.
I know he went through a lot of fights to get to his world title fight in obviously the various different belts and stuff. But since he's had the belts, and I know he was going for the unification fight, isn't he? Or potentially with what's his name?
Tyson Fury.
Gypsy King. Yes, thank you. I haven't really heard much about Anthony Joshua recently, and I do like my boxing, but he just kind of seemed to have gone under the radar a little bit. And I think Tyson Fury, in some way, has kind of taken the limelight from Anthony Joshua without having to do much, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So I'm not really sure what's going to happen in terms of AJ. I mean, I know I mentioned on the group chat the other day that if there is some kind of rematch clause within the contract, I haven't really seen anything come out. Right. Okay. So I think he will take that.
Yep.
The rematch clause and give him a chance to get the belts back. But I've got to be honest, unless AJ does something about his weight, because I think that's one of the things that has helped him in the past, is that if he catches you, you're gonna go down. And we see various different people that have taken quite severe beatings from Joshua with one or two kind of haymaker style punches.
Yep.
But we don't really see much of his boxing game.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean by that? It's that he goes out trying to end the fight with one knockout punch, whereas you look at the likes of Tyson Fury is a good example of that. Is that he will wear you down and down and down and down, and then will get you. And that's very much how Usyk fought for me. When I was watching the fight, I thought, Jesus Christ, he's got speed, he's got power, and as you mentioned, he nearly had AJ right at the very end of that fight, and I thought the ropes definitely saved it. In fact, it was you that said it.
If it was two steps more forwards, he was on the canvas, and he almost was a couple of times. But I think there was two telling signs for me. The first being the ring walk was too long. He was trying to intimidate it, but you could see he wasn't confident. And when he got in the ring, he was chatting to people. Uysk, the whole time, hadn't taken his eyes off him and looked like a bloody leopard seal when they're hunting. There was no blinking. He was laser focused, and that was the first sign of he's definitely going to batter him. The second sign, and you see it, the first jab that he landed, AJ's eyes went wide, and I don't think he's ever been hit by someone who hits as hard as Uysk. I know he's come up from cruiserweight, but I think at that point there was a stark realisation of I'm out of my depth here, because he's just glided through and hit me first time, no questions asked. My concern is, right, he's just signed this big long-term deal with Eddie Hearn, so there'll be pressure because he's a cash cow, isn't he? At the end of the day, he makes money. He's got the backing of the country because he is a nice guy. There's no doubt in that. My concern for him is if he's not fully in, because if he's not fully in, that's where he'll get hurt and potentially life-changing things happen when you're in that game. And for me, if he's not in, he will be pressured by all the people around him to get back in because he can win, he can do that. I think the second time of asking, Usyk's going to be similar weight. His boxing's only going to have got better. His confidence only is going to have got more because he knows he can actually do it. And that thing of being able to physically impose himself on him is going to be gone because he did come in lighter, but Usyk's not going to let him do that, is he? He's going to get straight in there because he knows he can beat him, and I think we'll see AJ get knocked out, which is not good. It's not good to be knocked out. But all I can say is, if he was to ever hear this, if you're not 100% in that game, please don't get in the ring again, because no one likes to see someone hurt, and especially at heavyweight. Do you know what I mean? One punch changes lives. I think he's on the other hand, right? I think he's lucky that it wasn't Tyson Fury, as I think Tyson Fury would have made him look silly, and I think he would have been mucking about. He would have been dancing in the ring. He would have been doing all sorts while he was boxing his head off. But yeah, once it's great. Go on.
I was just going to say, I think if it does go to another fight, because I think it was a similar thing with Fury and Deontay Wilder, wasn't it? Is that there was an option for a third rematch? I think they need to be very careful in the terms of what's going to happen with this. So with Usyk and Joshua, whether there is going to be another mandatory rematch, because the UK public want to see Joshua versus Fury, don't they? Let's be honest. It's a fight that boxing fans have been screaming for donkeys. Obviously, even whilst Tyson Fury was going through his troubles, shall we say, it's still a fight that people have wanted to see for a long time. So, are we going to miss the boat because of the endless fucking rematches? And
Derek Chisora's mandatory challenger now as well. So theoretically, there's got to be at least 2 fights, possibly 3 if there's a rematch in that one, before we see Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua. In fact, do you want to know the fight I want to see? I want to see Tyson Fury versus Usyk, because they are both phenomenal boxers, and that will be a tactical masterclass of boxing.
Aren't they both southpaws as well?
Yes. But they can both.
I think that was another thing that
orthodox as well. So.
Okay.
They both have switched it up in the past.
Because I was going to say, I think that was another thing that I think we've seen AJ struggle with previously, is the southpaw fighters. But it's. I'm definitely going to watch the next one of those, because he did, like I said, he did surprise me quite significantly, just how quick Usyk was, and I got to be honest, I didn't expect it. I was at the start of the fight, I was like, no. When I got your message, I was like, nah, AJ's going to do it. But as soon as I saw him come out, man, that guy has some unbelievable pace, and the jab definitely won it for him.
And he
without
did,
a shadow of a doubt.
He ate a few as well, but he didn't tire. I think if that went another 12 rounds, he would still come out with the same ferocity he did in every single round.
And there was a few times during. Sorry, just one last thing on that. You see AJ absolutely blown out of his ass after each round, and Usyk was just sitting in his corner. It was kind of like Drago versus Apollo Creed.
Yep.
That's kind of what it reminded me of.
It was.
But yeah, we'll definitely see that in the next one.
Yeah, I think the thing is AJ all the way through all the press conferences was saying there is no plan. There's no plan. We haven't got a plan. We don't need a plan. And I think people were thinking he was bluffing. They have got a plan. I don't think they did. I think he was telling the truth. We don't know what's going on, mate. If I'm honest, I don't know who I'm fighting. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But on that note, we are a footballing podcast, so most of this has been about football. But if you have enjoyed it, as I said at the beginning, please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. We do appreciate your support. But until next week, I have been Ian.
I've been Mike.
We are FDT-TV, and we have been on the air, and we will see you very, very soon.